Good morning. The May 12th meeting of Senate Finance Committee will come to order. First bill we have is Senator Seeberger's Senate File 4667. And while Senator Seeberger is coming up to the table, I think we have an A3 amendment to the bill, which was to take out the cost of the provision. I believe, Senator Seeberger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I do have the A3, and with this amendment, it would take the cost out of the bill. And the way it would do that is simply by a reallocation, looking at lines 1.22 and 1.23, indicating that if there were insufficient funds appropriated, the commissioner should determine the award amounts for each eligible applicant from available resources. So with this amendment, there should be no cost to this bill, and I can describe the bill if you'd like.
Please,
or sure.
Please just go ahead.
Thank you. So Senate File 4667 deals with the eligibility of a person for survivor benefits if they develop cancer as a result of firefighting. And what this would do is align the state benefits, the state line of duty death benefits with what has happened federally. Recently, Senator Amy Klobuchar and Senator Ken Kramer of North Dakota worked to pass the Fallen Heroes Act, which includes a list of cancers which are related to the occupation of firefighting, making it a presumptive line of duty death. This bill does the same thing. And this bill has come after years of work done by Senator Jeff Howe. He's worked with the Department of Public Safety to address cases where firefighters succumb to COVID-related illnesses, and at the same time, he was also working with Minnesota professional firefighters for an expansion of work-related cancers for firefighters. I believe the job of firefighting is the only only occupation listed as a carcinogen. And we know that working in the field exposes firefighters to any number of toxic elements and carcinogens that result in cancer at a disproportionately higher rate than the general population. So 4667 identifies cancer, exposure-related cancer, and makes it a presumptive line of duty death if you die from cancer and you're a firefighter.
Thank you, Senator Seeberger. As you said, the only occupation that's a carcinogen. Yeah. Senator Frentz moves the A3 amendment. Is there discussion of the amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. We could have Mr. Turner go through the fiscal note, but the amendment takes out the cost. So if we don't need that. Is there any further discussion of the bill? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So where is the fiscal cost going to go? Is the department going to absorb the cost?
No, Mr. Turner, do you want to? Sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Senator Pratt. This program is funded out of the Peace Officers Benefit Account. And that account consists of an annual base of $1,367,000 in appropriations, and then any additional appropriations the legislature decides to make. In fiscal year 24, the legislature appropriated $100 million one time to cap off the fund. The current balance in the fund is $41 million. The Department of Public Safety has determined that they have enough money to cover, even with this expanded eligibility, into the next biennium. If the fund runs out, they will still recognize the survivors, but they will then get in line to receive their benefit, their death benefit, when the money becomes available, either through the annual appropriation or an infusion of cash into the account.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion on Senate File 4? Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Seeberger, for bringing this forward along with Senator Howe and Senator Duckworth. Support the bill, and I think it's a great thing for our firefighters, and thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, if not, on Senator Seeberger's bill, Senate File 4667 as amended. Senator Frentz moves to be recommended to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Senator Seeberger.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Senator Maye Quade, House File 3489. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members. This bill has been a priority all session after learning the story of Hannah LaPresto and the advocacy of Detective Chad Clausen, who are both in the audience with me this morning. This bill would require appropriate licensing boards to be notified if a teacher is criminally charged with grooming. It creates a crime of grooming and then updates the DCYF training on mandatory reporting to make sure that mandatory reporters are getting the information they need to report these crimes.
And Senator Maye Quade, you have the A1 amendment puts the Senate language into the House file. Senator Frentz moves the A1 amendment. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Mr. Turner, or Mr. Arneson's here as well. You want to go through the fiscal note?
Mr. Chair, before that we do that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's also an A9 amendment.
Oh, okay.
Would you like me to explain it?
It's being distributed.
Great.
While it's being distributed, do you want to explain?
Happy to, Mr. Chair. The A9 amendment would clarify the definition of grooming. In Section 3, we would ensure the updates to existing mandated reporter training includes environments and circumstances that present increased risks of grooming. This is language we worked out with the other body to make sure that it's more expansive than just field trips. In Section 4, we will add language to say that the Department of Education can investigate alleged reports of grooming made after 3 years, and then there's the appropriation.
Mr. Nauman.
Mr. Chair and members, what's being contemplated in the amendment is an additional appropriation of about $1.2 million to the Department of Education, and that does not align directly with the fiscal note because the fiscal note was drawn on an earlier version. So we did some work to figure out what the appropriate number is, and that's what's being suggested here in the amendment. Members should also be aware that when the supplemental finance bill was processed, this was assumed in the education components of that bill, and the higher appropriation was assumed. So we'll have to accommodate that in the final discussions about overall numbers. The Senate's position, I think, now becomes a $1.2 million appropriation, and it's worth highlighting for members that on line 3.6, section 11, as proposed in the amendment, would make this, if the appropriation is enacted more than once in the legislative session, it should be given effect only once.
Is there, Senator Frentz moves the A9 amendment. Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Are there further amendments? Further discussion? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as I was going through the appropriation and trying to follow Mr. Nauman, it says the 1.2 million is for increasing capacity of student maltreatment program. Is that, I'm unfamiliar with that program, and I don't know, Senator Maye Quade, if you can explain it and how we're increasing the capacity through staffing, through outreach. What is the need here?
Senator Maye Quade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Pratt, for the question. So currently in the Department of Education, they will investigate claims of child maltreatment. And grooming, if it's added into the law as a crime, will be included in that definition of child maltreatment. And so the Department of Education would be responsible for investigating those crimes as well. In the A9 amendment, we clarify that the Department of Education can investigate alleged reports of grooming past 3 years, because currently the investigation window is 3 years for child maltreatment. for various reasons. And so that is where we see this fiscal note come in, is that it's for more investigators for the Department of Education. I believe our department currently has investigators take on about 60 cases, and the more appropriate number would be about 30, especially if we're doing something as sensitive as grooming. And so that is where that fiscal note comes in, and that cost.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So will we be hiring new people, and about how many will we be hiring at 1.2 million?
Mr. Turner or Senator Maye Quade?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we're looking at maybe 5 or 6, and I know the department is here as well to speak to it. I don't know if Mr. Turner would want to add anything, but it's pretty close. Yeah, the department can speak to it. If Senator Pratt would like a more
Somebody from the
specific number.
department want to step up?
Mr. Chair, I can maybe help facilitate this. The fiscal note on page 12 identified about 7.5 FTEs for 1.4. And I think the assessment was with the amendment that there were probably less need for some of those. And so maybe 2 were removed from that. So I think it's about 5, 5.5, something like that.
So it's a reduction in the fiscal note?
Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Uni, you want to come?
And Mr. Chair, while Mr. Uni comes, and Senator Pratt, and part of the reason is because the House language of this bill just says all child maltreatment claims can be investigated beyond 3 years, and our language here would narrow it to just grooming.
Okay.
Mr. Uni.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt. So just to kind of go back to provide clarity for the whole situation. So we have 10 staff members currently under student maltreatment program. When complaints come in about maltreatment of students in the school setting, we have intake staff who receive the complaints and screen them appropriately to the appropriate investigators, or screen them out because maybe there's a statute of limitations, or they find there's very clearly on the face of the facts that there's nothing there. Then they go to the investigators, and that makes up the bulk of our current team right now. They do the investigation, obviously, with the victims, with people who are named in the complaint, and they do a lot of interviews, which is time intensive, and creates right now we're facing quite a large caseload of around, I think in the fiscal note, if you see at top of page 14, you can see around 62 active cases per investigator. The thing about grooming is that it's a much more intensive process over a longer period of time, where there's a long period of re-victimization, possibility of re-victimization of the victim. And so our national research, particularly in Texas, as well as in Chicago public schools, has found that the best practice is around 30 cases. Chicago is even quite lower than that. I think it might even be in the 20 case range. But we've done a conservative estimate of around 30 cases per investigator. With trends that we've seen in other states, as well as looking at our numbers, we're expecting to see around 100 cases per increase per year, including the current cases, as well as a complexity factor we've applied to there. We've done a conservative estimate of around, in the original fiscal note, 5.5 investigative staff, as well as 1.0 screening intake, and then the 1.0 supervisor. We only have one supervisor over the current team of 10, with the complexity of these cases, as well as the size of the new team being required for not only grooming cases, but as well as the look back in the maltreatment statute of limitations. That would require another supervisor. But the real key with the estimate of the 5.5 investigators for grooming cases is we really want to have that manageable caseload per investigator because of the complexity of these cases and the sensitivity that we know comes with the victims in those cases.
Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, Senator Frentz moves that House File 3489 as amended be recommended to pass. On that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Mr. Uni. Thank you, Mr. Turner, and Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Maye Quade.
Yes.
Senate File 3891.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the much-beloved Maye Quade Westrum bill that would allow retailers to give their eggs past the quality assurance date to food shelves and food banks. The cost here on this bill was estimated to be $1,000, which the Department of Ag has said they would absorb. So it is a zero-cost bill that will dramatically improve lives in Minnesota.
Senator Frentz moves Senate File 3891. Does Mr. Olafson or anyone want to, well, the fiscal note is basically $1,000. They can absorb it. Is there any discussion of Senate File 3891? And again, Senator Maye Quade, this is one where they do inspect donated eggs regularly, and it's just now that the shelf life of the eggs in the store is actually much shorter than what they're good for.
Mr. Chair, the shelf life is actually much longer, and the quality assurance date that's on eggs actually isn't regulated, so it's put on by the companies, and there's going to be instructions placed on donated eggs on how to check for quality assurance. They're going to be relabeled, and so it is we're one of like 2 or 3 states that don't allow this, and so we will just be coming into compliance with the rest of the country and really saving a lot of food waste.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on Senate File 3891? If not, Senator Frentz moves Senate File 3891 be recommended to pass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Senator Maye Quade.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Johnson Stewart, Senate File 3236. And the bills are being distributed while you come to the table. Go ahead, Senator Johnson Stewart on Senate File 3236.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Members, this is the e-bike bill. Minnesotans across our state are being confronted with a growing threat to road safety, impacting youth and pedestrians and cyclists and all Minnesotans that use our roadways and sidewalks. Legal e-bikes are a wonderful tool and option for folks with many valuable uses, but many sellers and manufacturers of devices that are not legal e-bikes are circumventing Minnesota laws in ways that pose real challenges for consumers, law enforcement, and the media to understand, and the impact is being noticed in emergency rooms across our state. There are many devices being sold as e-bikes that under Minnesota law are legally motorized bicycles or even motorcycles, even if they do not comply with motorized bicycle or motorcycle regulations. And Mr. Chair, I have the A9 amendment that I would like to move.
Senator Frentz moves the A9 amendment for Senator Johnson Stewart. Do we want to explain the bill as the amendment would put it into?
So Senate File 3236, as amended by the A9, would contain bipartisan proposals to more clearly define categories of vehicles, provide consumers better information, help law enforcement understand and ensure safety on our roadways and sidewalks, and gather better information about the impact of e-bikes and dangerous and illegal e-motos on Minnesota roads. So the A9 includes provisions to clarify the definition of a micro-mobility device, a motorcycle, and a motorized bicycle. Members, the current statute and definitions for the spectrum of these motorized bicycles and e-bikes is quite confusing, and so that's one of the things that the A9 does. It also specifies electrical safety standards for e-bikes and motorized bicycles that are powered by an electric motor. It requires all e-bike operators under 18 to wear a helmet that meets certain safety standards. It expands accident reporting requirements in traffic law to gather clear data regarding e-bike and motorized bicycle crashes, which we currently do not have. It makes clarifying changes to motorized bicycle regulations and bans motorized bicycles, which are distinct from e-bikes, from shared use paths, which are used for both cyclists and pedestrians, And lastly, it appropriates funds for the active transportation account for a public information campaign on e-bike safety. And there is a fiscal note that also outlines the cost for compiling the crash data, updating the driver's manual, and then funding a safety coordinator to be housed in the DPS, in the Department of Public Safety. And that's the bill, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And before we have Ms. Boyd walk through the fiscal note, this bill is, Senator Dibble's committee has looked at and this is what everybody's been working on to get this. One question I see on the beginning, the first page, line 10, the e-bikes right now, because it's not, they can go up to 30 miles an hour even without any pedaling. So this would bring it down to what most e-bikes would be under 20, and it's just the motorized. The other ones that should be treated more like a motorcycle than a bicycle.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. And if you'll notice on line 10, or I'm sorry, on line 9, 1.9, it talks about when powered by an electric motor. So to be sure, some people can travel faster than 20 miles an hour on their own speed, but this is specifying it for when it's under electric power.
Thank you. Senator Frentz moves the A9 amendment. Wait, okay, and we're going to go through the spreadsheet as well. Maybe Ms. Boyd should go through the spreadsheet in the packets as well before we adopt it.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you. I'll just be walking through the several lines on the spreadsheet dated 5/11/1:51 p.m. This is only related to the A9 amendment. So on line, there are 4 appropriations, all within the Department of Public Safety, and these are all from the active transportation account in the Special Revenue Fund. On line 4, there is an appropriation of $121,027 and $119,000 a year thereafter for the new motorized bicycle safety coordinator position. Line 5, there's a one-time $200,000 appropriation for the required public education campaign on e-bike safety within the Office of Traffic Safety. Line 6 is a one-time appropriation of $26,000, and this is for one-time costs for IT systems within the Office of Traffic Safety to incorporate additional reporting elements in the crash reporting system. Line 8 is a one-time appropriation of $2,000, and this is for driver and vehicle services to update the driver's manual, specifically translations of the new updates related to the new helmet requirement in the amendment.
And Ms. Boyd, the public education campaign on e-bike safety is aimed at, so consumers know before they're buying one for their kids or whatever, whether it's going to be the e-bike that they can ride where they would ride them normally. That's the nature of the public campaign. Senator, I guess it's Senator Johnson's short question.
Well, I wasn't paying attention.
The education campaign is meant to educate people so they know the difference between the two and that more powerful things are not allowed. Okay.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, if I could add, there's currently quite a bit of confusion about what is the e-bike, what is a motorized bicycle, what's a motorcycle, because so many of these items are available by purchase just online and not within Minnesota. They are often purchased and provided to people who actually are not legal to ride them. So, for example, e-bikes, you have to be 15 to ride an e-bike. But there are many, many children out there under age 15 who are riding them simply because the information has not been made widely available. And so the public education campaign would strive to educate parents and consumers about the rules around e-bikes, e-motos, and motorcycles.
Thank you. Senator Howell, then Senator Drahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I got a question as far as, you know, I see that there's e-scooters and the definition between an e-scooter and an e-bike. And then I guess I think the same requirements for maybe you can answer this for me. An e-scooter and an e-bike, the same requirements for both? Is that what I understand? Because I'm seeing that you must be at least 12 to ride a scooter, but you got to be 15 to ride an e-bike. But I don't see where the e-scooter is actually defined. Is there someplace that I missed it someplace?
Top of page,
Mr. Chair.
top of page 2, line 2.
I see it, I underlined, but it doesn't really define it.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Mr. Chair, Senator Howe, so section 169.011 has a entire section in the very beginning, I didn't print out the whole bill or the whole statute, that defines all, actually, I think I did, but it's in my backpack, but it defines all of the different motorized vehicles. This just includes, the objective here is to include the motorized foot scooter outlined on line 2.2 to be included in the definitions under subdivision 44 for motorcycle. So it's just outlining the different types of vehicles. If you refer to section, the very first beginning, it outlines the definitions for all, and I apologize, I did not bring that with me.
Senator Howe.
Thank you for that. And so, yeah, I'm not going to look it up. I trust that you've done that. So the other thing is where is there any penalties then for those under 12 that are doing this, or from 12 to 15, from 15, the different places? Is there also then places in statute other than here that actually defines what happens to a 15-year-old that rides an e-bike without a helmet? Does it also outline then if somebody violates one of these definitions or whatever? Does that outline it in some 699 point something?
See, Mr. Watson, do we want?
Come on up.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
My understanding, or my objective in this bill is to outline the requirements, and I certainly will, I would expect Mr. Watson to answer that question better than I ever could, but thank you for coming up.
Go ahead. Do you hear his question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me.
Senator Howe. So anything that is, unless there is a specific prohibition or a specific penalty in 169, those are going to be, I think, a petty misdemeanor if you violate it as a base. And since these aren't, there's no specific penalty, that's what it would default to. And then, the various rules that I'm not familiar with about that would be in the more criminal code about what happens to a minor.
Senator Drahan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. I think it's really important that we do clarify this industry. I think it is convoluted. On my way back to my apartment last night, 10:30, I ran into probably half a dozen younger kids out. Some had lights on, some didn't. Is there anything in the bill language that would mandate that they have to have proper lighting on both the e-bikes and the scooters?
Mr. Watson, do you?
Mr. Chair, I know that there are specifications for headlights on motorized bicycles. I do not, in studying for today, I was writing down all the differences. I do not think that there's a headlight requirement for a electric bicycle, but maybe Mr. Watson can help me while I quick look again. But I know it's specified for a motorized bicycle because a motorized bicycle falls under the criteria for a motorcycle, actually. Mr. Watson, do you know?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Oh, wait, okay. Well, this is a motorized bicycle, which is different, so.
Chair, if I could, I think this is very important. I think we need to start, but I think for safety reasons, I think it's really important to have lights on as these become more and more popular. Downtown St. Paul, they were running around like I would have been at their age. So nothing against them. but I think it is important that we address that if we're gonna do the work. So my recommendation was that would be any type defined would require lights and maybe reflectors. And then my other question, Chair, if I could, has to do with the labeling requirements. I think there's something mentioned here on like 5.8. It says, and replace it with labeling that conforms with requirements of section 169.223, section or subdivision 6. And then on page 7 in the middle of the page there, it also has some requirement. My main concern there is, are we going retroactive for purchases or stores that are already selling this in Minnesota that have already purchased it? They have to go back or contact their old sales and relabel them. How is that set up in this bill, if you don't mind?
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Draheim. So in my meetings with mayors and forming this bill, it's actually, and please correct me if I'm wrong, labeling is already required, but oftentimes does not happen. So my understanding is that no, there is no provision for retrofitting bicycles and e-motos that, well, this is for e-bikes that have already been purchased. But many of the mayors that I talked to and the police departments talked about the fact that they distribute these labels as they pull as they pull bikers over or as they stop them. We have a significant problem with this out in some of the smaller towns in my district. And so it's not meant to be punitive, it's meant to be part of the education campaign. And so these labels, which have to specify which class of e-bike you have, and it's based on the criteria listed in the bill, the police officers will have those labels if they're not already on, but it's not meant to be punitive, and by no means do we have the means to reach back into previously purchased ones. Did you have anything to add?
I'll just, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to clarify, there's electric assist bicycles, which are what we think of as e-bikes, and those have a labeling requirement for what class they are, 1, 2, or 3. And then there's a requirement in law that if you exceed those, like the speed of that, you have to remove that label. This labeling requirement is for motorized bicycles, which would capture, say, a bike-like thing with a throttle that can go more than 20 miles per hour. So that is a new labeling requirement for those. They're in a legal gray area currently under law, whether or not they're, whether that's a motorcycle or a motorized bike. So that is a new requirement on that particular device.
Any further discussion? Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart, for bringing this forward. I don't know if I'm 100% on board with the helmet requirement, but I do want to thank you and Senator Dibble for allowing my amendment to take the funding for this education campaign out of active transportation. I can't remember if it came out of DVS before, general fund, or where it came from before, but I think the active transportation account is the appropriate spot to fund this. So again, thanks, Senator Dibble. Thanks you for taking that as a friendly amendment in transportation. So thank you.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Jasinski. I should also note that this bill does incorporate components of Senator Coleman's bill, and so this bill truly is bipartisan. There's many issues out there relating to the vast array of these vehicles and bicycles, and while we have done our best to try to clarify the different types, as Mr. Watson said, there's still some gray area where some fall into between 20 and 30, for example. And so we'll continue to work on this. But again, I just want to call out Senator Coleman for her work on this issue as well.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Johnson Stewart, I'm interested in I'm very confused by the difference between e-bike and motorized bike, because e-bikes have an electric motor and therefore are motorized in my mind. But I'm also interested in the motorized bicycle safety coordinator and some of the reporting. So is this, even though it's defined as a motorized bicycle safety coordinator, and we've defined a motorized bicycle differently than an e-bike, does this include e-bike also?
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Senator Pratt, you have, if I had a little bell, I would ding, ding, ding it, because there's quite a bit of conflation of the different labeling for these bicycles and scooters and motorcycles. So the word motorized bicycle may in fact encompass different things. So in the statute, or in the bill on line 727, you'll see that this person is responsible for educating state and local law enforcement and the public about the laws governing electric assisted bicycles, which oftentimes you will read in the paper, they're called e-bikes, motorized bicycles, which sometimes we call e-motos, but are also called motorized bicycles, motorized foot scooters, to Senator Howe's question, other micro-mobility devices, which are defined previously in the bill, and motorcycles. So the idea here is, to be sure, the word motorized bicycle has been misused, but we're using it here as an umbrella term to capture all of the things that people currently call motorized bicycles, even though in the bill we clearly define which is which. And so, Senator Pratt, part of our goal for this public education campaign and this safety coordinator will be to get people to understand. If anybody went to the Three Rivers Park District event 2 weeks ago where they had the baby lambs out on the lawn, they also had, I talked to the trail coordinators, and they had an e-bike and a motorized bicycle sitting right next to each other. They look just the same. Motorized bicycles typically, now correct me if I say the wrong word, motorized bicycles do not need pedals, but they often have pedals just because people are more comfortable with, I don't know, just because they come with pedals. And so the trail coordinator for Three Rivers told me that they had purchased the motorized bicycle, which is in fact a motorcycle, off Facebook from a 15-year-old kid who was getting his driver's license. And so he didn't have a license and he was not legal to operate this vehicle, and yet he was, simply because it looks like an e-bike, but it's not an e-bike. So there's clearly an opportunity for us to do some education and some outreach to people. Also, this person will collect crash data. I think you mentioned that in your question. We don't really know what's happening out there right now. We need to start getting this data, and that will further inform maybe some of our further work. But that is the reason that we called that the motorized bicycle safety coordinator.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And is the safety coordinator a full-time position at DPS?
Well, it's to establish a position in the funding. You noted that the position is a $121,000 per fiscal year. I think that would fund somebody full-time, but I think we leave it up to the Department of Public Safety.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some of this stuff seems like it's being done in other areas. I'll tell you, Senator Johnson Stewart, I'm having a hard time understanding why we need a full-time bike safety coordinator to do some of this stuff. I mean, how often do we have to assist law enforcement in identifying, categorizing vehicles? How often do we have, the database, we're collecting data all the time in DPS. This seems like it's kind of a make-work position. And I just don't see this having enough volume to necessitate a full-time person at $120,000 a year.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Mr. Chair, again, Senator Pratt, I hear you, I understand, keeping in mind that the person will not make $121,000 a year, but that includes fringe and all the other costs. But I need to just emphasize, this is I have 15 communities. I know some of you, Senator Draheim, Senator Jasinski, Senator Howe, have many, many more communities than 15. But for me, my mayors, this is one of their highest priorities, is addressing safety issues with e-bikes. Not just an issue on the many trails that we have going through our district, but also in our downtowns. And I heard Senator Draheim talk about City of St. Paul. That's clearly an issue. City of St. Paul has different types of characteristics than the city of Excelsior, for example, which is a very narrow, highly trafficked, almost a rural downtown, very similar to what I would find if I travel out to Detroit Lakes or to Nisswa or any of the other small communities across our state. The challenge that the police and the mayors are having in those communities, Wayzata is another one, even Long Lake is another one, Mound is Minnetrista, St. Bonnie, I could keep going, but is these e-bikes are being used by children who are not legal to ride them. They're traveling very fast and very unsafely. They don't have helmets. We heard of the woman who was killed or severely injured, by a motorized bicycle in Hastings. And so I think it is appropriate for us to address this, as I know e-bikes are going to be becoming more and more popular. Our church rummage sale last year couldn't handle all the plain old-fashioned pedal bikes because of all the kids who are now using e-bikes. They just turned in all their bicycles, and we're seeing them on the street. The other day I matched the speed of a kid going down Gleason Lake Road at 45. That kid was a kid. There's no way that child should have been on that e-bike, and there's no reason for them to be going 45. So they can retrofit them they can soup them up, or whatever the word would be, to go much faster than 30 miles an hour. And so I think it's time for us to address this, at least for the next several years, for the public to understand not only what they're buying, but the rules around which they can be operated. So I would ask for your support on this vote.
Further discussion? If not, Senator Frentz moves the A9 amendment, the one we've been discussing. We have a lot of members on Zoom now, I think, so maybe roll call. Is there any further discussion? A9 amendment? If not, staff will take the roll.
Senator Marty.
Aye.
Senator Frentz.
Yes.
Senator Pratt. Senator Champion.
Aye.
Senator Draheim. Senator Howe. Senator Jasinski.
Aye.
Senator Johnson. Senator Mohammed. Senator Murphy. Senator Pappas.
Aye.
Senator Wickland.
Aye.
Senator Johnson. Senator Mohammed.
Aye.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you. There being 10 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. On the bill as amended, I want to just say, Senator Johnson Stewart, I'm glad the Transportation Committee spent a lot of time on this, because again, this was kind of a sleeper issue that people weren't paying attention to, and practically overnight, it seems it's just exploded, and misinformation and misunderstanding is very significant. I hope this helps. Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. And I'm hopefully you'll continue to work on this, because I do have a question as far as the lady in Hastings when she got injured down there. Where does the liability fall in this? And is there an insurance product that actually covers this? Does it go to the homeowners? Do we have to take out now insurance on our e-bikes, just like we do our motorized bikes, I should say our motorcycles? Where does this thing land, and do we have more work to do in Commerce to get something done here as far as addressing the liability?
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Howe. I do know the answer to that, because some of my school districts, after working with the mayors to try to figure out other ways to address this issue, they have been having parents sign forms that say exactly this. Your child, by the way, only high schools should have kids riding e-bikes unless you have a somewhat delayed 15-year-old in 8th grade, but mostly this is high schools. They have parents sign a form that say, if your child rides their e-bike to school, you should know this information, A, B, C, D, E, and the last one, or one of them says, any damage or any liability, any accidents that are caused by this, your child on this e-bike, or whatever, they use the right word, is covered by your homeowner's liability insurance. And so for e-bikes specifically, that's covered by your homeowners. And parents oftentimes don't know that, so when they get this form, they're like, it just brings an awareness that they may not have had before.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, and thank you for that answer. That's good to know. Is that must, I'm just wondering how long it's going to be before now that you're going to have a rider that covers that and I'm sure that, you know, if it covers it, you're going to have your limitations, and especially for the poor woman in Hastings, that might exceed that. So that's a good note for folks out there, and they may have to address that if their kids are really active on it. And if I can think back, if I was a kid back in those days, I would probably have been a little bit of a daredevil and stretching the limits. So I can only imagine the concerns for parents when they get that notice. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Senator Howe, on your point too, I mean, she mentioned that the e-bikes are covered by riders. I assume the motorized bikes are not necessarily? That's a commerce question maybe for next session.
They may be motorcycles, and of course a motorcycle requires its own insurance because it's a vehicle just like your car is. So I think now we're getting into areas where I have zero expertise, so I'm going to see that.
And Mr. Watson did find out information on lighting and so on as well? Just briefly, what?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to confirm that all bicycles, including e-bikes, are required to have lights at nighttime.
Good. But I do think Senator Draheim and Senator Howe's comments about this suggest there's a lot more work. This is a very important first step, but more work to be done. So.
I think Senator Frentz had a question.
Go ahead, Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart, and thank you, Senator Howe. Actually, motorcycles are specifically excluded from the definition of motor vehicles in Minnesota. So I like your forward spin that this is a topic in the Commerce Committee. To Senator Howe's point, liability as this group of transportation expands, that'll be something Minnesota will have to consider, but we are a mandatory automobile insurance state, and a lot of coverage for e-bikes comes through the homeowner's policy. But to Senator Howe's point, as you see more and more questions of civil liability, my guess is you'll see more and more insurance companies creating carve-outs and other exemptions, which will, my guess only, lead to some state discussion at some future legislative session. Thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And on Senator Frientz's motion that Senate File 3236 as amended be recommended to pass, staff will take the roll.
I did not know all bikes needed a light.
Senator Marty?
Aye.
Senator Frentz?
Yes.
Senator Pratt? Yes. Senator Champion?
Aye.
Senator Draheim? Aye. Senator Howe? Aye. Senator Jasinski?
Aye.
Senator Johnson? Senator Mohammed?
Aye.
Senator Murphy? Senator Pappas?
Aye.
Senator Wickland?
Yes.
Senator Pratt? Yes. Senator Johnson? Senator Murphy?
There being 10 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. And thank you for a good first step. We're going to have more work next year, I have a feeling. With that,
Thank you, Chair.
Senate File 3236 is on its way. Senator Hoffman. Oh, here he is. House File 3404. And that is being distributed to committee members as you come forward. And Sir Hoffman, we have the House file, and you're planning to go with the House file language here.
Mr. Chair, members, yes, and do Senator Draheim, who usually opens up with a, geez, Hoffman, your expensive comments. This case, it's not to Senator Draheim's point, but yes, Mr. Chair, the House language, please.
You want to briefly speak to the bill, and then if Mr. Turner is here, we can go through, oh, he's, okay. You want to briefly speak to the bill?
Yeah, you know, Mr. Chair and members, as you know, there was letters from the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association and Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association and the Minnesota Sheriff's Association that in their original letter, they supported, and they still support this bill. Mr. Chair, Minnesotans expect and deserve absolute confidence when an individual presents themselves visually or verbally as a peace officer, and that person is a duly licensed Minnesota peace officer. What this bill does, it just reinforces trust in legitimate law enforcement officers in our state and sends a clear signal to people that they will face stiff and severe consequences if they violate that trust. Y'all know my story, Mr. Chair, and I won't dwell on it, but it was a moment in my life when I saw this with all the necessary lights and sirens and looking like that person was a police officer. When I finally realized that it wasn't, that was when I first received that first bullet, and then 8 after that. So it's personal to me, Mr. Chair, but when you really look at it, there's also people out there doing what they're doing, and it's got to stop. We have to, we trust our law enforcement. I mean, it's when something needs to be done. So with that, Mr. Chair, I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Mr. Turner, you want to quickly go through the fiscal note?
Mr. Chairman, members, yeah, the fiscal note in the bill came in. There's no fiscal year 27 costs. There's tails of 13,028 and 21,029 and subsequent years. That translates into is 4 new felony cases annually estimated, less than 1 prison bed annually starting in 28. This was part of the governor's supplemental budget package, and within the governor's package, he recommended that the bed cost, less than 1 bed a year, be absorbed. The House concurred with the governor, and Senator Hoffman concurs with both.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the bill? Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair, and I just wanted to make sure on the record that Hoffman's still expensive, so this doesn't lower your average any.
Senator Frentz moves that House File 3404 be recommended to pass. Senator Hoffman, any final comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you.
On the Friends motion, House File 3404, not as amended, the House File 3404 be recommended to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Mr. Turner. Senator Frentz, Omnibus Pension Bill. Thank you.
All righty. Ready? Buckle up.
Senator Frentz, it's being distributed, but you might as well go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. Proud to present to you the bipartisan and unanimously adopted 2026 Omnibus Pension Bill. Members, pensions are the promises that we make to the men and women that work, that educate, that keep us safe and keep the state running. And I'm glad to report to you that this year's Omnibus Pension Bill includes significant funding to improve pension benefits for cops, firefighters, teachers, and a lot of men and women who are in our pension plans. These some go back to some changes made in 2018, but the bottom line here is through some of the work of our members on both sides of the aisle, we adopted a number of provisions. The finance provisions have some help here, but the gist of it is over $12 million in base funding to improve pension benefits, a one-time appropriation of $3 million to help with probation officers, 911 communicators, to offset the pension improvements. Members may recall from last year's pension omnibus work that one of the things Minnesotans are asking us for is for improved timing of their full retirement. In this bill, without getting too deep into the policy, Mr. Chair, we are funding earlier retirements with greater benefits. This not only serves to support the men and women in our pension plans, but hopefully will help us recruit to these professions going forward as we ask people to step into these careers and say to them, here's what your pension looks like. Want to add, Mr. Chair, that glad to be joined on the LCPR by Finance Committee members Sandra Pappas and Jeff Howe, both of whom have provisions in this bill that'll be a step forward for Minnesota. And with that, Mr. Chair, happy to get more into the details. Again, have a phone a friend here. Tell me what suits the Finance Committee best, and we'll take it from there.
Sure, Senator Frentz, perhaps we'll start by you moving the A5 amendment.
So moved.
Is there any discussion of that amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Mr. Erickson, on the spreadsheet.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members, in front of you, you should all have a spreadsheet that describes the various provisions with fiscal implications of the pensions omnibus bill. You'll see at the top that this is drawn to the Senate File 4276, the first engrossment, and unlike some of the other spreadsheets where this is organized by agency, instead this is organized by the individual change in the bill. So the first piece is from Senator Rasmussen, Senate File 4572, which deals with the Board of Investment's expense apportionment. The Board of Investment manages a variety of state funds and then charges those funds for the costs of managing those for years. The general fund, or the SBI has received a general fund appropriation to do this and then not had those expenses reallocated. To sort of comply with best practices, this bill would reduce that general fund appropriation by $139,000 each year, which is what they get from the general fund in the state government bill each year. And then you'll see very near the end of the spreadsheet on 31 and 32, there's an associated revenue loss to the general fund. This would be increased billings to the general fund. On lines 9 and 10, you'll find Senate File 1122, Senator Frentz's bill relating to para-police and fire and removing a COLA delay and benefit improvements there. This is being paid in the bill as a direct state aid of $8 million per year. On lines 13 through 18, there's a number of related appropriations for the probation and telecommuter retirement subplans that are being set up in the bill. Those came in as Senate File 5097, Senator Frentz's bill. In creating this plan, there is a change in the amounts of employer contributions. For those folks who are on the local plan, those employer contributions are, of course, the employer is a local unit of government. But for the state, there are 3 agencies that employ folks who would be eligible for this new subplan, and so the bill increases appropriations to the agencies who would have to cover those employer contributions. You'll see that for the Department of Corrections, that's $272,000. For the Department of Public Safety, $14,000. The Met Council, $40,000, all those from the general fund. And then if you skip down to line 20, the Department of Public Safety also has some folks who are paid from the Trunk Highway Fund, so there's a $7,000 cost there. Each of those 4 are paid on a calendar year basis, so you'll see the annual amounts in the tails are double that. The final portions of that change item is that there is some direct aid that is paid into accounts for to buy down employee contribution costs, the increased costs of that. There's $390,000 one time for MSRS folks and $2.6 million for those in para. And then the final change comes as Senate File 4860, Senator Pappas's bill to improve benefits for the St. Paul teachers, and that is a direct state aid of $3.4 million, and that's related to a decrease in the amount of employee contributions going into that plan. So if you go to the very final line, line 37, you'll find that the bill spends $15,369,000 in the first year and overall $25.4 million in the tails.
Are there questions from members of the committee? Senator Frentz, any comments on the bill?
I do, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your patience, members. There's some things that people in your district will want to know about this. First of all, the COLA delay. We have a pension principle to try to prevent the retirement benefits from losing buying power. Inflation hurts that. Pension benefit improvements help that. That principle is reflected in the removal of the delay in COLA benefits for cops and firefighters. So imagine retiring, risking your life for the people in your community or your state, and then being told, here's your retirement benefit. By the way, it's not going to buy what it used to a year ago. This removes that one-year delay, which was a high priority for the members of our public safety community. For my friends, Senator Pappas's colleagues and the St. Paul teachers, they had sacrificed a year ago in some of the funding in order to make our other teacher benefit improvements go, and they took a marker from me in the LCPR on the record that we would address that. And Mr. Chair, glad to report that this bill does that by providing those St. Paul teachers what they lost, I would argue, a year ago. In the new plan, we have a work group that had success. This is probation officers, 911 telecommunicators. They came to us a year ago and said, we would like to have a new plan which addresses our desire for a better pension setup. And to their credit, Mr. Chair and members, they engaged in a year-long conversation and came up with work group recommendations, which are now included in the bill before you. A really solid set of ways to tell that group of Minnesotans, we hear you. And then because I am a sucker for the details, I want to just call your attention, Finance Committee Chairman and members, to the State Board of Investment reallocation. This is a little bit in the weeds, but very important. We want to provide funding for our outstanding State Board of Investment and the work they do, supervising over $100 billion and successfully so, and prevent a hit on the individual plans, which of course makes it harder to pay for the promises we make in retirement. All told, members of the Finance Committee, this comes out of LCPR unanimously, and I would appreciate a yes vote to send this to the floor. It is, Mr. Chair, the same as they're bringing forward in the other body. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Frentz, and appreciate the good work of the Pension Commission. Senator Champion?
Senator Frentz, just one question. I see in our packet that there's some folks from Hennepin County, namely probation and telecommunicators, retirement plan administrators or others, let me just put it that way, who are writing in opposition. Can you help me understand how I, line up or align what you just said as far as they should be okay? There's an agreement, but then we got a packet of some letters in opposition. So I just want to understand that. Thank you, Senator Frentz.
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Champion. I received many of those same letters. Members, in the probation officer at 911 discussion, there's always a question of generational equity. If we create a pension plan that is great for a 28-year-old, it may not look quite the same for a 58-year-old. Those letters that you received raised a question about how much benefit they would get from the new plans. However, in addition to that being a fair point, I would argue there's a little bit more good news if you're younger. So those that raised that in Hennepin County, Senator, I think you can say it's true. This is more geared towards recruitment and the earlier benefits. However, that recruitment is important to the entire group, and they participated in the work group. But I think more important, Senator Champion, is the second point. It appears to me many of those letters were written before they knew about the $3 million one-time funding, which is used to offset the employer share. And I didn't put it in your packets, Mr. Chair, but can share it with you, Senator Champion. This chart, which is compiled to show that even the persons who wrote those letters actually will come out ahead on this plan once that one-time funding to help with the employee contribution is factored in. And I have emailed many of them back to offer to sit with them and to show them that their concerns, while coming from a legitimate place, may be overstated. Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Champion.
Thank you, Senator Frentz.
Is there further discussion? If not, Senator Frentz moves that Senate File 4276 as amended be recommended to pass. On that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. The pension bill is on its way. This may be our final Senate Finance Committee, and it was very efficient. We finished in before 10 a.m. Want to thank all the members of the Finance Committee, including Vice Chair Frentz and Lead Eric Pratt, and Fiscal Analyst Eric Naumann and Counsel Lexi Stangl, and all the Senate Council Research and Fiscal Analysis staff who spend a lot of time preparing for this committee, and Mr. Mueller, who is filling in directly for Mr. Naumann today, and Elspeth Cavert, the Finance Committee Administrator, and Killian Becker, the Committee Administrative Assistant, and the partisan researchers, Jackie Clinton and Christina Wilson, and frankly, all the folks on their staffs who have contributed to all the bills before us. And our committee pages this year, Isaac Sparber, Cynthia Candela Gonzalez, and Brooklyn Carlson. And they've been very helpful in getting things prepared quickly for the meetings. And with that, we hope this is the last Senate Finance Committee. We will be letting you know in the next few days if there is another one for some reason. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And on behalf of myself, Senator Pratt, Senator Draheim, Senator Howe, this is possibly our last forever Finance Committee meeting. And I just want to tell you how much I've enjoyed working with you on the Finance Committee and, of course, other things. And every day now this week, I'm going to cry, especially if we don't get a bonding bill.
We're hoping for Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just wanted to, again, thank you for your partnership over the last 4 years in helping this committee run, and I want to echo your accolades to our staff. They are our nonpartisan staff and our partisan staff both are outstanding, and we couldn't run this place without them.
We are very fortunate to have such good staff here. Thank you all, and with that, this committee is adjourned.